So now we will look into the results chapter. This is one of your two long chapters. The other one was the literature review, about 15 to 20 pages. So the results chapter is also your second long chapter, 15 to 20 pages. So if you think that you have 5 chapters, introduction, that should be about 5 to 8 pages. Methodology, 8, 10 pages. Discussion, another 8, 10 pages. But then the results and the literature review, they will be like 20 pages each. So this is one of the longer chapters, but this is at the same time one of the easy chapters to write, because once you analyze your data, last time we met, we looked into how you will collect the data, how you will analyze the data, right? Now, when you analyze the data, how are you going to present the data in your results chapter? We will be looking after this short lecturing session into the two theses that we have, Nina's and Johanna's thesis. One is qualitative, one is quantitative. So we will check how they have written their results chapter, and that will hopefully give us some insights about what we should be doing. Okay. Yes, now it changed. Now, remember, why are we doing the thesis? The whole idea is about answering your research questions. So everything should be guided by your research questions. So what you do, based on your research questions, you choose what literatures you will review. And at the end, you find the theoretical framework that you use in your empirical study. So it is your map. When you are looking for answers in the practical world, you go with that map, design your interview questions, survey questions based on your theoretical framework, and then look for the answers using that map. So how you are going to present it? Well, there are many ways of doing it, and actually the most common two ways are either using your theoretical framework or your research questions. So in reading the 4th chapter, I should, or the reader should clearly find answers to your research questions. So that's the whole aim. It's not to write everything what you have collected. The idea is not to write all the collected data there, but to answer your research questions. And in doing that, you need to think about how I structure this chapter. What should be 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, the subsections, and you could organize it according to your research questions, or you could organize it according to your theoretical framework. What are the key elements in your theoretical framework? So these are just suggestions, and maybe there's a third way. You may come up with another idea. What would be the best way to structure this chapter? Now, in this chapter, it is important to remember that you are going to present the facts from the data. You are not going to, I wouldn't expect to see any, I don't say many, I say almost any citations. So nothing will come from the literature in the results chapter. Everything will come from the data. Of course, when presenting the data, it may be that you use secondary data as well as primary data. So if you are using secondary data, of course, when you present the secondary data, you should present the source where the data is coming from. So you need a citation for that. However, I am assuming that if you are going to be mostly relying on primary data, interviews or surveys, you do not need many citations in this chapter. So do not integrate into this chapter also any opinions. Do not start to elaborate with own opinions about the results. Just present the results. Just present answers to your questions based on the data that you collect. It is in the 5th chapter, the discussion chapter, that then you will start to put your own ideas about, okay, you found these results, so what? What are the implications for managers, for practice? How do your findings compare with what you have read in the literature? Did you find something new? Is there anything that is not in line with what you read in the literature? So you will be comparing your results with the literature that you have read. So those are left for chapter 5. Here, it's all about reporting the facts that you found, and they should be reported in a way that presents the answers to your research questions. And since this is a long chapter, 20 pages, it is good that you keep the reader awake. So if it's all text, 20 pages of text, on the 7th page, you may lose the reader. Make sure that you make it more interesting to read with the use of visual aids. Write some figures, write some tables. They will be adding or they will be increasing the readability of your results chapter. However, in doing that, be selective. Don't put a table with lots of numbers, and then the reader, the eyes will start blurring. What is this? Sometimes even presenting the numbers, I've seen theses. What is the level that you want to share that is of interest? So, do you want to say 30 million? Or do you want to say 30,296,372? What is the, or I have seen even in also cases 30 million, I don't remember anymore the number, 296,373.7456. Do you want to go to that detail when you present the numbers? Make sure that the figures and the tables you share are self-explanatory. I've seen figures which, when you look at it, you don't understand what's on the y-axis, what's on the x-axis, right? So make sure that the y-axis and the x-axis, they have their units. What are the dimensions? What are you measuring in the y-axis? What are you measuring in the x-axis? So make sure that it is the figure itself is self-explanatory, without reading any text after the figure, after the table, I should be able to understand what it is telling. But then, of course, it is also your responsibility, I may miss the main point. What's the main point from the figure? What's the main point from the table? You should also present that after the figure, after the table. Okay, so these are important. When you are using visual aids, you need to be careful how you use them in a good way.
Is that before the figure or after?
So the way before the figure or after the figure, usually how the text and the figure complement each other. The text is coming, and then you are going to insert a figure. You would say, okay, in figure 7, what will be presented? So, or you write some sentence and see figure 7. So you suggest before the figure what the reader should see in the next figure. So statistics of something is coming. And then after the figure, okay, what is it from the figure that the reader should digest or should benefit from? After the figure, you write the main result from that figure. What did you want to communicate to the reader from that figure? So that comes after the figure. If you say it already before the figure, then I don't need to look anymore to the figure. If I know So that is that will be the way. And sometimes, if you have been doing interviews, sometimes to make your text readable, I say sometimes, and you should be very selective about this comment. You can use some quotes from the interviewees, which you find very important. Okay, so I wouldn't want to see a results chapter which is full of quotes from the, you just put everything what you have got from the interviewees without any thinking how that contributes to your presentation of the results. Just put a lot of quotes. That's not what I want, what I'm after. Use this tool, this weapon, selectively at the appropriate place. Don't use it a lot. Okay? And remember, if the quote is more than 3 lines, our YAML reporting instructions is saying that it should be, sorry? No, it's not plagiarism. It should be the way how you share it, it should be indented. It should be a separate paragraph if it's more than 3 lines, the quote. It should be single spaced without any spaces before or after. So when you are writing in Word, make sure that you follow the YAML reporting instructions if you are sharing a quote which is more than 3 lines. Single spaced, italic, and indented. You will see that in your template there is perhaps some example of this. If not, YAML reporting instructions is telling us how to do that. So these are the most important 3 things to remember when you are writing the results chapter. Just present the facts, answer the questions, structure according to your research questions or your theoretical framework, which one makes more logic. And not many citations, no literature. Don't compare anything with the existing literature here. This is all about the practical world. We have the 2 worlds. Remember, the theoretical world, the practical world. Chapter 2, literature review, that's about the theoretical world. That's about concepts. And this chapter results all from the empirical study that you have conducted, nothing from the theoretical world. And just present the facts. Don't go into any sharing any opinions that you will do in the discussion chapter. This chapter is also easy to evaluate, and here we have in our assessment criteria we have the 3 criteria that are perhaps, I'm not sure if the 3rd one is related to that. It could maybe I should make this. Are you able to see that well? You can see it, or should I make it bigger? That's fine. So the 3rd one, process project management, perhaps that's not related to the results chapter. It's about the whole process, how independent the student has been able to take care of the whole thesis process. I just put it here, I don't know why. But the more important are the presentation of the results. So for the grade of 5, they are presented illustratively. Now, when saying illustratively, I should mention there was one thesis, very recent thesis, which was quite good, but in the thesis committee, there were some, let's say, worries about the quality of the illustrations. I should share it with you all that you don't fall into the same trap. Now, the thesis was a qualitative research. So when you have a qualitative research, you may count, okay, how many times some certain concepts have come up in your interview. So you did interviews, you collected data. You may count those concepts, how many times they appeared. It's okay. That gives you some idea. But don't present in the results chapter the number of times that they have come up as a figure. Okay? Remember, qualitative research is not about presenting numbers. It's more about presenting deep insights. So in that respect, avoid any bar chart, pie chart, whatever chart, which is telling us, okay, in our results, let's say you made 8 interviews and you were, let's say from your theoretical framework, thinking about, let's take the case of Hanna. She is looking into how different companies are using different strategies in response to this new regulation, right? So let's say you interview 5 people from 5 companies, okay? And then you hear that from one person, you hear that the company is using one type of strategy. So you presented this Oliver's typology of responses, and let's say out of your 5, 3 said that they use this strategy, and 1 said they use another strategy, and 1 said there is another strategy. So don't make a pie chart saying that these are the strategies that are used, 3 this, 1 this, 1 that. Okay? You are not going to say that 60% of the companies are using strategy X, 20% are using that, and 20% are using this third strategy. You are not going to generalize based on the 5 companies that you have interviewed that the majority is using this. In your study, you will try to understand more why those companies are using certain kind of strategy. Let's say defiance strategy. So why the majority of the companies that you have interviewed have been using defiance strategy. So you need qualitative research, means you need deep insights. You are not going to present that, okay, 3 companies out of 5 have been using strategy, defiance strategy. You can say that most of the companies were using, or you can say that 3 of the 5, in the text you can say that, but don't make a illustration how many companies have been using which strategy, 3, 1, 1. That would give the wrong impression that you are trying to quantify. And of course, it's not the idea that you quantify, it's the idea with qualitative research that you show deep insights, not that how many are using which strategy. You can say it in the text, but don't make any figure about the numbering, the quantification of the responses.
But then what about then this kind of like you have let's say that somebody is defiant, and then you look about those kind of words or what kind of thing they mean with this defiance, and then there's something that this kind of not a chart but this kind of picture that some words are bigger, some are smaller, that are like related to. Is this also not?
That can be, yeah, that can be. So there's no numbers there,
there is no number. They just measure of some words are bigger, some words are smaller, and
that can be okay, but that also sometimes can be a mess. There are many words there, and that can also it needs to be explained well.
It just shows what kind of like words or what kind of things comes into the mind of those people that I have.
That is okay, but that needs to be explained well. I've seen those kinds of figures, where there are tens of words. Okay, some big, some small, but you can't even read the small ones. So that needs to be also explained very well. That these are the concepts that can come out The important thing here is to offer deep insights. You know, that's the idea with qualitative research. And truly, qualitative research is difficult and challenging and very vulnerable to criticisms. If you do a good quantitative research, your defense mechanism is much stronger if you have done it properly. But qualitative is very subjective, and it is, let's say, it is vulnerable to different criticisms. So in that respect, one important thing, don't try to quantify. Make sure that the insights are deep. It's not that how many chose what, but why was that strategy more selected among your 5 companies?
So you do need pure results.
Pure results, yes.
You do not need to exaggerate somehow the numbers and things. You need the pure results.
We need the pure results, you know, it's...
But you said why that is to go too deeper. If you ask why, then you just announce it and give your opinion. That is wrong.
Not your opinion. So you should ask that to the interviewees, and the answer should come from the interviewees, not from you. So when you are making your interview questions, the idea here is to ask deep.
You almost need to ask why. Why did you
Yeah,
come to this
yes.
kind of conclusion in the interview?
Yes.
Already.
Yes. So
Otherwise, it's not possible.
yes. So you need to go deep. You know, as the interviews will be semi-structured, you will always be prepared to ask the why question. So you want to understand why that kind of strategy. So what are the if you think about the responses in the typology of Oliver, what makes a company choose a certain type of strategy? We need to understand why they are choosing that kind of strategy. So always ask the why to get the deep insights. So for qualitative research, I think the why question is important.
But for this result chapter, we see that this is about how to answer your research questions by
Yes.
presenting the facts from the interview.
Yes.
Not mixed up with your own opinion.
Yes.
Analysis.
Yes. So all the when I say facts, so it means that it's coming from the data.
Yeah.
So all the data analyzed by you, that's what you present here. And
by analyze the data is actually just to count category of this kind, not give any further understanding how you understand.
So qualitative research is difficult. You know, data analysis is difficult because you do it, you know, in quantitative. Once you collect the data, you put them to SPSS, and then things come out. And then, of course, there is also the problem of interpretation there, you know. Why things come certain ways. You need to start thinking about that. Qualitative is also challenging. You know, it is more challenging perhaps, because you need to do the analysis by yourself, not with the there is no tool that will do the analysis for you. And finally, here we said the illustratively, and I warned you about the nature of the illustrations, diversely and just with justifications, and they are considered critically. So good presentation of the results, so-called, when you said these, you know, these verbs, so these kinds of mind maps can be useful, which are like showing the deep insights, the connections between different terms. And we will see, you know, when we look at Nina's thesis, we will see how she has presented. So, you know, when we talk now in an abstract manner, it's difficult to imagine, but when we see with Nina's thesis, then we'll be hopefully clearer about how to present. So for the grade of 5, always critical, And here, perhaps the most important criticality is that make sure that you answer the questions. If the reader gets the feeling after reading the 4th chapter that where are the answers, then that's not a good results chapter. So most important thing, remember what were your questions and what are the answers. Do I find the answers there? If yes, that's good. At least a 3, for sure. And of course, those of you who are doing it, who have been assigned by a company, we also ask for an evaluation from the company representative. So, Ming, you are doing it for your company. So we will ask also evaluation by your manager. So when you present your thesis, you will also be presenting self-evaluation, that's one, and also an evaluation from a peer. So one of your colleagues here will make an assessment of your thesis. And finally, we will ask also the assessment from your employer. So somebody from the employer side will also assess your thesis, and we will see, okay, how satisfied is the employer from the results. Has it
of the number in the marking and
sorry?
thesis, it have an effect of the good marks in
That's
the thesis?
because I did actually now one peer evaluation of one
Peer evaluation does not affect the grade.
Good.
Peer evaluation is
Because
more
that's
for
what
the
I-
one.
Yes.
Peer evaluation helps actually more the student who is doing the evaluation. So that's the purpose. We don't take the peer evaluation into consideration when we are grading. We also assess using the assessment criteria, but this is more to help you. When you assess somebody else's thesis, then you learn what you should be doing or not doing. But we take into account the assessment by the employer when we achievement of objectives. We cannot judge if the objectives set by the employer have been achieved. So we read what the employer is thinking about the results. So that's important that we take into account when we are putting the grade from this criteria. So that's all about the results chapter. Now let us go to C. Let us go to C, the thesis of Nina Poronen. I start with the research questions. This is the starting point. Remember, she had one main question, and under that, 4 sub-questions. So the main question is, how can new business development be enabled in bioeconomy in Central Finland? Sub-questions, strengths of bioeconomy, organization structures, blocking new business development, different organizations, how can they collaborate, and finally, international business, enabling international business. So these are the 4 sub-questions. We may already have discussed that, this is too diverse. So too many sub-questions under one main question. And let's also, before looking at the results chapter, let's also have a look at the theoretical framework. So the theory that she is using is the gap model, which is, let's see the figure. So this is the theory that she's been using for the analysis. So the gap model. So she's been in discussing about collaboration between different actors, she's been looking at the gaps and how those gaps can be bridged. So this is the theoretical framework that she has used, and we have seen the research question and the sub-questions. And let's have a look at the structure of the results chapter. So that is here, chapter 5. Research results. Well, you don't need the research, simply results. Strengths. So that was sub-question number 1, wasn't it? Strengths of the, and strengths of what? You know, just by looking here, strengths. What strengths? But of course, I know that in sub-question number 1, she was looking into the strengths of the bioeconomy in central Finland. So that's about that.
So we have to complete that strength of bioeconomy.
I would.
You would recommend.
Otherwise, when I look here, research results, strengths. Strengths of what? Obstacles to new business development. That was the second sub-question. Enabling new business development. That was the other, enhancing regional collaboration. I think that was the third one. And enabling international business development. That was the last one. So she has structured her results chapter according to the questions. And then look, the last one, bridging the innovation gaps. That comes from the framework. So you can see the answers to the sub-questions, and in 5.6, you can see how she has used the theoretical framework, how those gaps can be bridged. In a way, this bridging the gaps is actually another way of saying enhancing regional collaboration. So bridging the gaps means those actors, they collaborate with each other. So they are kind of together. So let's go to check This is a long chapter, isn't it? Starting on page 66, ending on page 85, so almost 20 pages. So in line with what we have been discussing, so let's go to page 66. So here we start. So she starts with telling about what this chapter is going to be doing. And look what she has written. This is quite good. The point that I was mentioning about another thesis, as the research is descriptive and interpretive, the intention is not to provide numerical statistics or percentages. It's not important how many respondents have said certain things. So confirming what I've been saying, this is not the important thing, how many said what. So don't emphasize, especially with some graphs, with some figures, who has said how many times or what concept has been said how many times. So strengths. So these are the strengths that have been, these are the organizations that have been identified, and here comes the strengths that she has found out from her interviews, 14 interviews she has made, and then she explains each of those, starting with the bolded. She is explaining all of those one by one, in brief, not in detail. Okay, so that's about answering the first sub-question. And then she's going into the obstacles. Again, she's starting with a bulleting. So this is not a table. This is not a figure. She is just bulleting what she has found, and then she goes into tell in detail for each of them. So she's providing insights, deep insights for each of those bulleted areas, what she has identified as obstacles. So make sure that whatever you identify, provide also insights, deep insights about each of those. So in that respect, and do you see any citations anywhere? I haven't seen any. So sounds like I was right. No citations in this chapter, if any, for secondary data, perhaps. So obstacles to new business development. And this is all coming from data. We don't see any opinions of her. Now there is the problem coming. She said that she thinks that it's not important how many times it has been said. And look here, table number 10. I'm not going to say that the caption of the table is not according to YAMP reporting instructions. Table, you only capitalize the T. You know, the able here should be small letters. And after 10, we should have a dot, not a double dot. You know, that's minor mistake. But then, you know, she's counted here as if she's providing some statistics, how many times the gaps have been mentioned. Instead of this, I would just say that, you know, there were 14 interviewees, so all the gaps have been mentioned almost. I mean, 13 times or 12 times, for me, they are all the same.
But she was, I think, emphasizing putting some figures that do not make it between the readers.
That is the problematic. That is the problematic area. You see, when we look at this chapter, this is the only table that we encounter so far, right? When we said make visualizations, so far I haven't, until this page, I haven't seen any figure. Of course, these bulleted areas, like you see, you know, they help. This is not a figure, this is not a table, but here you see what are the main findings easily. So this helps.
How kind of visualization?
This kind of visualization, bulleting. So it helps. But coming back to the table, I wouldn't recommend you to make that kind of a table, because the table is emphasizing something. In that table, the numbers are emphasized. However, you know, when I look at the numbers, I don't see a big difference if 13 have said it out of 14 or 11 have said it, or even 9. For me, all the gaps, I would perhaps be writing a short sentence saying that all the gaps have been recognized by most of the interviewees. So that is kind of supporting that the gap model is relevant. It's not important has somebody have they identified 13 times or 9 times. That's not the important thing. But it becomes the important thing when you present it like a table like that. Okay.
So if you be in her shoes that you don't have any visualization and you have only the same table, you do recommended that change the shape of the table?
Now is coming a good table. Now you are asking about tables. Yes, make tables, figures.
That do not emphasize in such kind like that.
That makes sense to answer your questions, because especially in this case, what we notice is that the results are so diverse because there are 4 sub-questions plus the theoretical framework. You know, once I am on this is 20 pages. Once I am on the 12th page, I am like, okay, what was it in the beginning? So at the end, especially when your results chapter is long, at the end, you may want to make a summary table which shows your key findings. And here we will see that as well. Coming down at the very end on page 83, table 11. So this is the kind of table which I would be happy to see. This is the kind of table which offers deep insights. I mean, compare this with the table that you just saw. 13 have said this, 12 has said this. That's not the aim of qualitative research. The aim of qualitative research is to find out, okay, if we think about this is the same thing, you know, bridging the research gap, bridging the capital gap. So these are the gaps that were identified. So how do we bridge those gaps? So here in this table, check out, you know, when you go home, read this table very well. We find here, you know, what are the main problems and how we can solve those problems. So how do we, let's say, how do we bridge the education gap? Under it, coming all not from your mind, but from the interviews, from the data collected, they have said that more education in relation to business and infrastructure development, chemical industry, chemical forest industry, etc., etc. So to bridge the education gap, the education institutes should offer more education in these areas. A second suggestion, more updated and enhanced bioeconomy related education. So the education institutes in central Finland should offer more updated bioeconomy related education. Another suggestion from the data, more company involvement in education planning, flexibility in education organization. So for all of these gaps, she has found from the data suggestions how those gaps can be bridged. This is deep insight. This is what we are looking for when you do qualitative research. So this is what I am looking for as a table, as a figure, whatever you...
In results.
Yes. So this table summarizes very nicely. Okay, we have these gaps. How do we bridge those gaps? Here you go. There are the very concrete suggestions what you should do, or what the, you know, whoever will do should do to to bridge those gaps. So this is what we are trying to find out. How do we make the actors in the region collaborate with each other to bring new business development?
I think you do have a question from online students.
Yes, it looks like we have questions. So, Colette is asking, is there a particular format for this result chapter, or do we create a format as per the nature of research questions or our various theses? I don't know what you mean, various theses. Can we have a format like you gave us for the literature review and introduction chapter? So the format for the results chapter, there is no single format. I suggested two ways, either according to your research questions or according to your theoretical framework. So those are two suggestions. Maybe there is some third one that you may come up with. Every thesis is different, so the results of every thesis is different. There cannot be a standard, but the approach can be standard. So research questions or the theoretical framework, which of course help you to answer your research questions, could be your guide for the format of this chapter.
This one is like mixed.
This one is like mixed.
And for the in these tables, there have these solutions to bridge the gaps. That is purely from the interview.
Yes, not from your mind. That's from the empirical study. I mean, that's research. Otherwise, why do you do research? Why do you do interviews?
Yeah.
you are aiming to answer the question. I can also answer the question. Let's, leave away those questions. I can also answer, but I will not get the same answer. This is more reliable. These have been experts. The interviewees have been experts in this field. So I could think of some things with my little brain, but I wouldn't be able to get this kind of deep answers as you see in this table. So overall, I think this is a very good example of the results chapter of a qualitative research. So there is also here the external gaps. There were 5 internal gaps, which she presented in table 11. And she has put the external gaps in a different table because I think she ran out of space. So think also, no table, no figure should be split between 2 pages. So make sure that you put them all in 1 page. Okay? And that means that you can use your creativity, how it fits in 1 page. If it doesn't fit in the page, then put it to the second page, but make sure that it doesn't exceed 1 page. So that was the thesis of Nina, and now oh my God, my session has expired. Good. Let's log in again. Let's have a look at the thesis of Johanna. Let's get back. Sample thesis, Johanna Valkeinen. I have prepared it nicely that we start with the research questions. So let's start with the same logic. Let's first have a look at the research questions, and then let's have a look at the theoretical framework. So the research questions are: how can companies increase the online trust of potential customers? And supporting questions are: what online trust factors influence individuals' online shopping and banking behaviors? And what are the online trust factors that companies can influence to improve individuals' online shopping and banking behaviors? Even when I read these questions, I got like confused, online. Oh my God, what these supporting questions are more confusing than supporting. So, okay, so these were the questions. So what online factors influence, and which of those companies can influence? Okay. That was it. And then the theoretical framework, it was, you remember this, right? You remember that this was about this was a quantitative study, and she was using the framework by the trust framework. Here comes the framework that she has used. So those factors that affect on the trust of the customers, of the individuals to online shopping, online banking. So these were the factors, and she did a quantitative study with a sample of 100 plus persons to understand which of those factors are actually impacting on the behaviors, the trust behaviors of the customers. Okay, now that we have remembered those, let's have a look at the structure of the results chapter. Three sections: Internet purchase frequency, linear regression findings; Internet banking frequency, linear regression findings; multicollinearity results. Oh my God. And look, all in all, 6 pages. 6 pages. And remember the question, it was about trust. And one was about, she's interested in understanding the trust of online shopping and online banking. But then there were like factors that affected the individuals and factors that companies could influence. And when I look at the results, 4-point multicollinearity results, what does that tell you?
What does it mean, multicollinearity?
Yeah, good question.
The problem is what.
Luckily, I don't need to explain because you are not going to do a quantitative research, right? But looking at the results structure, this is not a quantitative research methods course, so we won't go into what means multicollinearity. But just not going any further. Looking at the structure of the results, I can say that, well, is this really in line with the research questions? Maybe I see some connection. There is the internet purchase, internet banking. This multicollinearity could be out of the picture. It's not needed to open a section, and as you see, it's not even 1 page. So if you look, the results, 4.1 starts on 48, and 4.2 also starts on 48. 4.3 starts on 49, and it ends on 49. All this 4.1, 2, 3 all together, they are 1 or 2 pages, right? So actually, the main results are before 4.1. So you see from 43 to 48. I don't need to dig any further into what was good, what was bad about this. I will do. But even just looking at this picture, just looking at what were her research questions, what were her theoretical framework, and looking at, how she has designed the results chapter, I can tell this is horrible. And 6 pages, and 5 of the main results are even before 4.1. So why do you open 4.1, 2, and 3 for 2 pages, right? Not well structured, not well designed. I can tell it. I think you can also tell it, right? Just looking at this. But let's go and look what is in there. Maybe some more tips about what you should not do. So here comes the results. Okay. Starting with some descriptive statistics about the nationalities of the respondents. Oh my God. She wants to impress us with some figures. Don't include any that kind of figure, All those colors there to tell us that, okay, out of the 100 plus, 1 was from Taiwan, 1 was from Sweden, 1 was from Spain, 2 were from Slovenia. Who cares? If you want to give some background information about the nationalities, put them according to regions, how many Europeans, how many Asians, how many Americans, that would make more sense than, 1 from Austria, 1 from Belgium, 2 from Croatia. Well, I can see that Finland has been the big, the big, let's say, the leading country there. But more important here is, by region, is there, what is the distribution by region? And this kind of graph, luckily she has put the numbers there, because otherwise, without the numbers, all these colors mean nothing, right? Luckily, so if you put the numbers, you could just put a table, right? I mean, what's the pie chart's relevance there? Just put a table with the numbers. That's enough. You don't need a pie chart. Okay, so that's the first. And actually, usually, if you look at some quantitative articles, you will see that they don't use charts. They will present all descriptive statistics all in one table. Check out some articles. If you are doing quantitative research, check how the results are presented in some of the articles, good articles. So you will first have a table of descriptive statistics. And here we see many, not tables, but charts. Here you go, the age distribution. Oh my God. Some horizontal bar chart, okay? And then comes, so these are all the descriptive statistics. This is about the internet purchase frequency over the past 3 months. And then we have the descriptive statistics about internet banking habits for last 5 months. Okay, these look better. And then we have this descriptive statistics for independent trust factors tested. Now, what we said that all tables should be self-explanatory. So when you look at this table, do you understand anything?
Oh, I see the N. I see that 130.
Yeah. So actually, and that is the sample size. Average, that is the mean. Fine. Median, mode, min, max. But all these Z's, Z1 to Z11, don't put this kind of, the reader will not remember what was Z1, what was Z6. If you want to make some comparison, what is, so from that, you look at the averages, you see that the highest is 4.30, that is Z6, and the lowest is Z9. Okay, what was Z9? You need to go somewhere else to find out what was Z1, what was Z9. So don't make a table with variable names. Put the names. What was Z1? So I would rather make it make the columns in the row. So this Z1, Z2, Z3, I would put to the first column and put the real names. What are they? So that when the reader looks, understands, okay, this is the most influential one according to the descriptive data, and what is it? I don't want to go to somewhere to look what was Z6. And here comes our 4.1, 4.2, and 4.3. Now, when you read this, this is the thing when you are doing quantitative research. I have been involved in this thesis. I was the supervisor, and I know that she wasn't the best in quantitative research, and I know that she was in a hurry to finish it. So when you look at this, Y1 and Y2 equals C1 plus C2 plus C3. This is not how you present that. There should be also a constant plus a constant. And here she finds out that, okay, Y1 is a function of C3 and Z2. There should always be the constant. So there are some mistakes. So that is also the thing. When I said that quantitative is easier, I meant that we are also an expert how to do the quantitative research. So if you are not comfortable doing the quantitative research, your supervisor will not do it for you, you know. So mastering how to do quantitative research, it may be scary. You may say, I'm not good with numbers. I, prefer qualitative. But of course, after you master it, things are more straightforward with quantitative, but you need to master the quantitative research methods. So here, when we look at 4.1, which is so short, when we look at 4.2, which is even shorter, and when we look at 4.3, which is very confusing if you read it carefully. Now, let me read this 4.3. So, when the models were run, the results indicated that only 4 independent variables out of 11 were significant. Only 4 were significant out of 11. But when I look here, in this first regression, she finds only 2 variables that are significant, not 4, C3 and Z2. When I look at the second one, I see that 3 variables are influential, C1, C2, and Z8, according to the models that she has produced. So then when I look at the sentence under multicollinearity results, she's saying that 4 independent variables were significant. Which 4? Where? In the 2 models that you presented up there, one had 2 and the other had 3. Where is the 4? So you get confused over there, and then you get more confused. She's saying that for internet banking habits, okay, this 4 was internet purchase habits. But in the model it was 2. And for internet banking habits, she's saying that 8 variables were significant. Up there it was 3, right? So, you kind of think, where is the reliability of the results? So, yeah.
She's showing the tables then somewhere in the appendix or something.
Yes, in appendix 4, you see the detailed results down here. So here you get this is also not a good way. Here you see, I would put them in the results chapter, not in an appendix. The regression results. These are things that the reader would want to see. So appendix 4 and appendix 5, the regression results for internet purchase and internet banking. So these belong actually to, these are things that you would like to see. These are not that, you would put to the appendix. But still, when we look at 4.1, internet purchase, it's only 2 variables that seem to be significant according to her model. And she's saying in 4.3, 4 independent variables. So you get confused, Does she know what she has been doing? So the results chapter here is, don't even look at it if you are going to do a quantitative study. Don't take this as an example. Okay, Esa?
Yes.
Great. Any questions? I think today we have seen, and I also got similar feeling with the present. I haven't read the thesis with the presentation by Yevgeny. I also got some kind of worries when when he presented about the connection between the variables, using variables and measures as synonymously. So when you think about company performance, you can measure it in different ways. He has measured it in 5 different ways: return on assets, return on equity, but they are not different variables. You just measure, and return on assets, return on equity, quite similar. So let's see. I will read about it maybe in the future. I can also bring that as an example of a quantitative. It's a bit not so nice when you have your name on the thesis as the supervisor, and you say this is a horrible results chapter. But I know the case. She was in a really hurry to get rid of it. So that was not the best part. She had good, the beginning was good. The literature review and coming up with the model, etc., and data collection, all good, the methodology. But here, unfortunately, the end, there was a screwing, right? Great.
But thesis without small little screwing, it's some work.
Ehsan, you're also hurrying, right?
No, I supposed to submit it 1 month before, but I'm late actually.
Right.
I'm not, because I want to concentrate and be without any.
So the message is, don't leave it to the very end. You may need to hurry. Your study rights may be running out. So in that case, of course, it will not be a perfect thesis. But nothing is perfect. So we also benefit from bad examples. And this is from the results chapter perspective. This is one of the bad results chapters. You can already feel it without going into details in the structure, in the contents. So I think we are early, and that's good. We don't want to, we are all tired. We don't want to continue longer. Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much.
And all the best with your thesis. I'm sure that you will be progressing further until we meet next time. That will be on April, is it the 25th? But towards the end of the April, the last Thursday of April, and probably we will have some more
Interesting thesis.
Usually that's the last thesis committee meeting is in June, so students who are like running out of their study period rights, they present in April. So we will have some presentations as well in the maturity exam presentations in that day, and then we will be looking into how to write the discussion chapter. So that's the 5th and last chapter of the thesis.
By the way, one question. What is the difference between this peer reviewing and then the opponent in the
But opponent?
As a student? Because sometimes you get this that I'm looking for the opponent or I'm looking for...
No, there's no opponent, just peer review.
Okay, I sometimes get to my email that I'm looking for, okay, that's the peer review, okay.
Peer review, yes.
All right. Because I don't know how to opponent anything, because if you are not having no knowledge about the subject, how you can opponent.
Okay, so let's stop the recording.